There's a quiet tragedy that haunts the person who sees too much, not because the world is cruel in some obvious way, but because it's overwhelming in its noise, shallow in its expectations, and often unrewarding to those who crave depth. For those whose minds are drawn to silence, complexity, and introspection, the modern world can begin to feel like a foreign land, crowded with distractions, yet devoid of meaningful connection. If you've ever felt like you're speaking a language no one else understands, or like your presence in a room feels distant despite the company, you're not imagining things. This is not a failure of character, but the natural cost of perceiving the world with unusual clarity. Today, we explore why those who think deeply often feel alone, and what that loneliness might actually be pointing us toward. Thinking in its truest form is an act of rebellion. We may not realize it, but simply pausing to reflect in a world obsessed with momentum already sets you apart. The dominant culture today is built around immediacy. Swipe fast, scroll faster, form an opinion quickly, move on before depth becomes discomfort. In such a landscape, to slow down, to ponder, to examine, to resist the temptation of instant certainty is almost radical. Deep thinkers are often misinterpreted not because they intend to be mysterious, but because they dwell in nuance where others crave simplicity. They ask questions that don't always have answers and aren't satisfied with the kind of black and white thinking that passes for wisdom in everyday conversation. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." This is not a comment on superiority, but a reflection on distance, psychological, emotional, and even spiritual. When your vantage point changes, so too does your sense of belonging. Another challenge lies in the sheer weight of awareness. To think deeply is not merely to process information, it's to absorb and integrate everything. The emotional undercurrents in a conversation, the contradiction behind someone's cheerful facade, the unstated motivations behind polite words. The thinker often sees not only what is said, but what is left unsaid. And this heightened awareness, while a gift, can also be exhausting. The more you notice, the less you can ignore. The more patterns you recognize, the harder it becomes to play along with the illusion of normality. It's not that the thinker becomes arrogant or jaded, it's that once you've glimpsed the machinery behind the curtain, the social games, the performative norms, the quiet desperation that so often drives people's choices, it becomes difficult to pretend you haven't. Everyday conversations can begin to feel hollow. Small talk feels like walking through fog. Even joy, unless rooted in authenticity, can seem strangely detached. The world, once vivid, begins to feel muted. Modern society, of course, doesn't help. It's built for speed, not reflection. It rewards those who are loud, reactive, and easily digestible. Long-form thought, books, dialogue, internal debate is slowly being replaced by sound bites and slogans. In such an environment, the deep thinker often feels like a stranger in their own time. While others skim the surface, they're diving to the ocean floor, searching for something real. But few are willing to join them there. The culture misreads depth as delay, introspection as indecision, and quiet as weakness. Ironically, it's not just intelligence that isolates the thinker, but also empathy. The more sensitive a person is to the thoughts and feelings of others, the more difficult it becomes to fit into a world that often ignores or suppresses emotional truth. True connection requires shared perception. And when your internal world is complex, layered, and emotionally nuanced, finding someone who resonates with that same frequency can be incredibly rare. This loneliness isn't about being better than others. It's about being different. Different in how you process, how you care, how you seek meaning. And the more unique your inner landscape, the fewer people there are who can truly walk inside it. Yet solitude need not be a punishment. When embraced rather than resisted, it becomes a crucible for transformation. It's in solitude that the thinker sharpens their insight, refines their values, and discovers their authentic voice. As Blaise Pascal once observed, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. The deep thinker, by contrast, is often most alive in stillness, where the noise fades, and something deeper begins to speak. The goal, then, is not to be understood by everyone, as that would require diluting what makes you unique. The goal is to remain true to yourself, even if it means walking a lonelier path. Because that path, while quieter, leads inward toward clarity, meaning, and a sense of peace that can never be found in the crowd. So, if you often feel like a misfit, not because you're antisocial, but because the conversations you long for seem to live in another dimension, know this. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are simply tuned to a rarer frequency. And the world needs minds like yours, perhaps now more than ever.